Joseph, a 17-year-old boy who was entrusted with a simple dream. He knew the Lord, his God, anointed him to do his kingdom work, but the chaos and confusion and the messiness of sin stood in the way of how God told him he would move. He was tempted with pride, painfully rejected by his family, and falsely thrown into prison. He knew he would have to become a living sacrifice of the Lord. He knew he would have to suffer and flee from temptation to fulfill his purpose. When the enemy is working against you, God is using it for good. So now, how are you going to spend your life?
I don't want to spoil the story for you guys who haven't seen it or haven't heard it, but it's really a powerful story about how God can give somebody a purpose, and in his timing, he will bring it to fruition. Raya, before she started worship, she read a passage. It's in Genesis chapter 50, almost at the very end of the book. And in this passage, it is pretty much summing up the whole story. Do you guys remember pretty much what it was saying? It was kind of saying like what the enemy means for evil, God uses it for good. Or in this passage, he's like, what you meant for evil, God uses it for good. And so we are going to step into this. But in the very beginning of the story, I'm just going to go ahead and read to you the first 4 verses, and we're going to kind of get into it. So starting at verse 2, it says, "These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was pasturing the flock with his brothers. He was a boy with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any other of his sons, because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a robe of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully to him." So I want to ask you, just at the beginning, where do you get your value? And if you have your paper, maybe write down some things that you think, why am I valuable? Is it because I'm really good at sports? Am I valuable because my mom and dad are pretty cool? Am I valuable because I'm good at fishing? Am I valuable because, what brings you value? I want you to consider that. And now I want to ask you, where does your value come from? We enter into this story with Joseph's dad. So Joseph's dad is a guy named Jacob, and his name used to be Israel. So in a little bit, you're going to see Israel. He's talking about Jacob. And Jacob was this man who had done some pretty nasty things in his life. He had kind of cheated. But what we see is that God uses people like Jacob who are not perfect. We see that God uses people like Jacob who are not complete. We see how God uses people like Jacob to do his will. And what we see is that Jacob was loving Joseph more than his brothers. And this is kind of a picture of the imperfect world that we live in, where some of you guys might have people in your life who are unjustly or unrighteously favoriting other people, or maybe even favoriting you or putting you above other people, when Jesus puts everybody level at the foot of the cross. Where Jesus says, "You are my son or my daughter." That's huge. And not that you're my favorite son or my favorite daughter. He says, you are equally loved more than any other human being on this planet can love you. You are loved fully by me. And so Jacob in this story is almost like a contrast of the perfect heavenly Father who loves everybody equally. And this is the first sin of the story, and the consequences kind of get progressively worse and worse. We see what happens when there is favoritism. We see what happens when people put their value in others before Christ. And so we're just going to walk into that. I'm going to go ahead and read to you verse 5. It says, "Now Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more." So there's this guy, Joseph. He's the favorite of his dad, and his brothers really don't like him because he's the favorite. And now Joseph has had a dream, and for some reason, this dream makes his brothers hate him even more. And what I'm going to tell you guys is that in this story, the dream is God revealing Joseph's purpose in his life. It's God giving him like, hey, 30 years down the road, this is what your life is going to look like. So I'm going to read this story to you, or read this dream to you, and we're going to see what it looks like. It says in verse 6, "He said to them, 'Hear this dream I have dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf,'" so this is like the wheat. This is what Audrey was saying earlier. He said, "We were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright. And behold, your sheaves gathered around it. They gathered around my sheaf, and they bowed down to mine." So Joseph has this dream, and pretty much what the dream is saying and what his brothers understand it to be is like, hey guys, one day you're all going to worship me, and I'm going to rule over you. And you guys are going to be subordinate to me, and like this is going to be great. And so what do you guys think? Maybe that's why his brothers didn't like him very much. I don't know. But at the end of the day, we have to learn what we're doing when we're seeking God's purpose on our life, because God gave him a very clear purpose in that passage. God gave him a very clear purpose, and he doesn't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. He doesn't know what it's going to look like 10 years down the road. But I know that God gave me a purpose to lead a student body like you guys, and I'm living in that right now. And I'm not knowing exactly what it's going to look like 30 years down the road, but I do know that I'm going to trust what God called me to do now. And God has called you to do something right now, but you might just not know what it is. But I'm confident that he has. But in this, as we're, trying to understand what is our purpose, what are we made to do? Why am I here in this world? These are questions that I'm sure you've asked before, and I'm sure you've struggled with and wrestled with. Either that, or you've just pushed those questions aside. But as we're trying to figure these things out, it's important that we learn from what Joseph just did. Joseph went to his brothers and was like, hey, I know you guys hate me and stuff, but what do you think about my dream? I know you guys really are not good representatives of what God has called us to be, but let me just consult you on this real quick. It's kind of similar to when you and I have this really big decision, or maybe you and I are struggling with something and we just don't know what to do. And instead of going to people who are wise, like for me, it's my grandma. She's like the wisest person I've ever met in my life. And going to somebody that's wise and seeking their advice, you're like, hey, I know you're like 12 years old and you've never had a girlfriend before, but this girl just told me that she likes me. What do I do? It's like you're seeking advice from the wrong person here. You know what I mean? Or maybe it's something like actually more real. Maybe it's like spiritual advice, and you're going to somebody who's like totally not the person that you should be going to. I'm going to tell you, there's some people sitting in this room who are absolutely amazing spiritual leaders, like even like students in this room who are amazing spiritual leaders, but even you guys, sometimes there's going to be something that's a little bit too much to give advice on. Like if you're not confident that this is like advice that Jesus would give, then I'm going to encourage you to seek advice from somebody that's wise. Maybe somebody that's like a student leader, like like myself, like Veronica, like Ryan, like any of the student leaders that you see in this room. Because what Joseph did is he went to the people who were absolutely not right to get advice from. Like if you're going to Jimmy John Joe, who just got off the street, and you're like, hey, what is God's purpose for my life? You're going to the wrong person. So I need you guys to seek out wisdom from the right people, and those right people are those who seek the Lord. And I also want you to learn that Joseph is not unique in being called. Each of you guys are called, and it's not going to look like a dream, I'm pretty confident, but each of you guys are called by God to do something specific only you were called to do. And that might be that you're going to pick up trash on Wednesdays, or it might mean that you're going to be in ministry. It might mean that you're going to go overseas and you're going to do missions. I am sure that there's people sitting in this room right now who are going to be missionaries someday. I'm sure that there are people sitting in this room right now that are going to be a pastor someday. I'm sure there's people in this room sitting here right now that are going to work a totally normal job that has nothing to do with Christ, but they're going to walk into that place and bring Christ into it with them. There are people in this room who are not going to do any of those things because they don't seek the Lord and they don't seek wisdom. And I don't want you to be that person. So, let's look back at Joseph's life. What we see is his brothers really don't like that dream. And they're like, what, are you serious right now? Like, you're telling us that you're going to rule over us? And so, obviously, they hated him even more because of his dream and his words. But then in verse 9, it says, then he dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers and said, behold, I have dreamed another dream. Behold, the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. So now he's had this first dream that's like, hey, you guys were all doing your thing, and then all of your wheat just somehow like bowed down to me. I don't know what that was about. And then he's like, hey, now the sun and the moon and the stars are bowing down to me as well. And there was 11 of them. He has 11 brothers, and he has 2 parents. And so when he told this to his dad and he told this to his brothers, obviously his brothers hated him even more. And his dad was like, yo, hold on. What's up with that? You know what I'm saying? Like even his dad was a little bit like, yo, I don't really get this. But what I see from this, and what like different people have told me as well, and things that I've learned throughout my life and reading the Bible, is that God will confirm if he has called you to something. So he gave him one dream that was telling him what's going to happen. And then he gave him another dream that was pretty much the same thing. But God is going to confirm his purpose on your life. And like I said earlier, it's probably not going to be a dream. It's probably not going to be like you woke up one day and you're like, whoa, I had a dream I was going to be a rock star. I know what. That's probably not it. Your purpose is going to be confirmed, though. For me, when I was feeling like, and this isn't my full purpose, to be here, to be a teacher to you guys, to be in the church, to be in ministry. But for me, I felt like this weird urgency and like desire to be in the church. And like to be doing everything that I see other pastors doing. And I don't know what it was. It was just like this, like I kept finding myself in that situation. And I was thinking one day, I was like, man, is this what I'm called to do? Like, God, is this what you're calling me to do? And it was like so odd because as soon as I was thinking that, my friend was standing next to me and she, it's my girlfriend, it's Raya. And she told me, hey, have you ever thought about being a pastor? And I was like, hold up. Hold up. I was just thinking that. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here, but I can tell something is. And then after that, that was like almost for me, like God's initial call, right? And then after that, God kept confirming it through other people and through prayer and through seeking him. When I would seek him through his word, he would answer. But then there would be seasons where I would be so shaky because I wasn't seeking him in his word, and I wasn't trusting the people who had wisdom around me. And so there were these times where I had shaky moments. It was because I was outside of his word. I was outside of seeking the Lord. I was seeking my own desires. But the truth is, you can learn his voice, and you can learn to trust him. What I've learned in the very little bit of years that I have in my life is that God is the only constant that you will ever have. It's not going to fail. It's not going to hurt you. Because every other person that's ever been created, every person in this room that's sitting next to you has the same sin that's in your own heart, that's keeping you from being perfect, that's keeping you from being able to save everyone else. It's keeping you from being that perfect person that you want to be. That sin that's in all of us is going to keep everyone below the level that God is going to be in our life. He is going to be the only constant. And I think what he might be asking you to do tonight as you're listening, as you go into your life groups after this, is to take that next step. To take that next step in your faith, to take that next step in learning his voice and understanding your purpose. Because genuinely, if I could look at every single one of you in the eyes right now and tell you this, God has made you with a purpose. God has made you with a purpose, and he designed you specifically for that purpose. You are designed with care. And I want to ask you a question. Why does it matter how you see yourself? Because you can sit here and you can say, oh, I was designed with care, but so what? It's not going to matter what I do. But I want to ask you guys, why does it matter how you see yourself? And we're going to look into this story a little bit. But first, I have a quick side note. A second time, Jacob favors Joseph above his brothers. And he has his coat of many colors on. He's kind of reclining at the house. And pretty much what happens at this point in the story is all of his brothers are out there working in the field. And Jacob goes to Joseph and he's like, hey, aren't your brothers out there working? And Jacob's like, yeah, I think so. And he's like, well, I need you to go and check on them and see how they're doing and come back to me. It turns out they were 3 days journey away. It was kind of crazy. But Joseph kind of goes on this journey to see where they are, and he meets somebody who's like, hey, you're in the wrong spot. So he goes and finds them. And while he is on his way there, it says this in verse 18. It says, they saw him from afar, and before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. His brothers, his flesh and blood, conspired to kill him. They said to one another, here comes the dreamer. Imagine that. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into the pit. Then we will say that there's a fierce animal that has devoured him, and we will see what becomes of his dreams. His brothers hate him so much that they're like, let's ruin his life by killing him, right? So in verse 21 it says, but when Reuben heard it, he rescued him out of their hands, saying, let us not take his life. And Reuben said to them, shed no blood, throw him not into the pit here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hands and restore him to his father. So Reuben, he's kind of a real one. He's trying to rescue Joseph. He's like, hey, guys, let's not kill him. Let's just throw him in the pit. It's probably 10 feet down or something like that. Let's throw him in there. It doesn't really matter what happens to him in there. But let's not kill him. So Reuben has this little bit of conviction there. And he decides to rescue him. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe. So they took the robe off of him, the robe of many colors that he wore, and they took him and threw him into the pit. The pit was empty and there was no water in it. what we see here is that the way that we view ourselves and the way that we view others is going to change the way that we act. Pride and self-seeking will hurt you and others. And the way that you see yourself can change the way that, is the way that you will have pride. There's one thing that is going to make you have pride, and it's the way that you view yourself. And so, if you seek out other people's approval, and it's not, you're not alone in doing this if you do, just want to say that. If you seek out other people's approval for your worth, like if you walk into a room and you think to yourself, what do these people think about me? I want to be accepted. I want to be loved. I want these people to like me. I don't want to be an outcast. I don't want to be different. I want to be like everyone else. If you walk into a room and you think those things, just know that you're not alone in thinking those things. There's a lot of people in here that do. But if you do, it can lead you to pride and self-seeking. That's going to get away of the way that you view yourself in light of God. I've said this so many times, and I'm never going to stop saying it because the truth, honestly, is outstanding to me personally. But you are a child of God. You are to God like his own son or daughter. And some of us have parents who haven't loved us very well, and I just want to acknowledge that might be you in this room, that if you have parents who maybe haven't loved you to the fullest, the Bible describes God as a perfect father who does not have the capacity to do wrong. He loves you so fully and so much more than what you can even comprehend. But what's amazing about it is that he lets us know certain attributes of himself. He lets us get to know him. He lets us have a relationship with him. And it's we are these tiny little beings, and he is so infinite that it's amazing, and it boggles my mind that God would even allow this for us. But when we lose sight of who we are as a child of God, a child of God, when we lose sight of who we are as a child of God, we try to become a really good football player or a really, really popular person on Instagram, or I want to see how many likes I can get on this post, or why does this person get more likes than I do, or why does this person hang out with more people than me, or why this, why that, all of these random things that we put our value in, that we seek after so hard, when in reality, God has given you way more value than any other person could ever give you because he has named you son or daughter. Christ loves you first. So what's wrong with pride? Let's read verse 25. After they threw him into the pit, it says, then they sat down to eat. And looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with their camels bearing gum, balm, myrrh, and on their way to carry it to Egypt. Now, this is a verse that you could just pass through, but I think it highlights something about pride that you need to realize. When you view yourself as more important than other people because you have this or that, or because of whatever reason, when you start seeking yourself and you seek protecting yourself, what happens is you become numb to the fact that everybody else in this room right now is also a child of God. What are they? A child of God. And so when you are so obsessed with yourself and you're so obsessed with thinking about yourself, and it's not abnormal to do this, but it happens, and that's why I'm talking about it. But when you become so obsessed with yourself, you begin to lose all of the meaning that's behind the people around you. You begin to lose the fact that I'm a child of God and this person next to me is a child of God and they have the same value that I do. And so when somebody is suffering, you will sit down and you won't care and you'll just eat your food. Like, imagine that you just push your brother into a pit and he's probably screaming and crying for help. And you guys are just like, we did it. Let's eat our food. And it's like, I'm kind of making a little bit of humor about that, but that's the same stuff we do in our own pride all the time. Some of us will be in a group of people and we'll see somebody standing by themselves alone, like just looking clearly like they want a friend, but we're in our group of friends, and so we're just gonna glance at them and we're gonna say, I don't really care. I'm with my friends right now. You're not gonna make that step to welcome that person. And it's really not like, it's not abnormal, but it's something that needs to change. We need to be people who seek others first, who seek the needs of others first, not in a manipulative way or a way that's enabling to those people who are unhealthy, because sometimes calling people out is seeking them, their needs first, because we're bringing them to Christ. But when you are consumed with pride, when you're consumed with self-seeking nature, you're going to see other people as means to an end. You're going to see other people as something to get what you want. You're going to see other people as less valuable than yourself. And so sometimes it comes with also feeling numb or apathetic. And so if you feel that way, if you feel numb or apathetic or maybe just checked out of life, it might be because of the same thing, that you've lost where your value really should be. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and you have them on your paper, and I don't want you to share this with anybody, but I'm welcoming you right now to write down the answers to these questions. I'm just going to read them to you. Do you withhold praise from others? Do you delight in getting attention? Are you uncomfortable in the presence of gifted peers? So these are just 3 questions. There's more questions to ask if you want to really get deeper into that. But 3 questions to ask to kind of take a little bit of a view of yourself and ask, where do you put your value? Because if you answer, the way that you answer these will inform you on like the real root of, okay, if I'm withholding praise from people, is there a reason I'm doing that? Because they're a child of God too. Is there a reason that I'm doing that? What could that reason be? If you delight in getting attention, I'm going to tell you that you're probably like most other people, but that doesn't make it right. That makes it a result of sin. If you put that above God, because guys, I do some of these things. I do all of these things at times, but it's just like, it's a question to answer to see where you really put your value. And if you're uncomfortable in the presence of gifted peers, maybe you're an athlete and that other athlete that's a little bit better than you is, it just makes you mad to be around them. Or maybe there's that person that's a little bit more charismatic than you and you just have this desire to like see them fail. If that's you, it's just like, this is a heart check that I want you guys to be thinking about and write down the answers. Not that you can show it to anybody else, but simply because I want you to be honest with yourself. So I'm going to sum up the rest of the chapter for you. Pretty much what happens is they throw him in this pit. They're eating, and then these people come by. They're on their way to Egypt, and they're like, y'all got a slave for me? They're like, yo, my brother down here, he would make a great slave. Here you go. They sold him. They kept his cloak of many colors because they got to use that later. And so these people take him. They put him in chains. They take him away. And his brothers are just like A-okay with it. His brother Reuben, the guy that was trying to protect him, he came back and was like, what have you done? He tore his clothes. He was super upset. But then they're like, okay, what do we got to do? We got to cover this up. And this, like, I'm running out of time, but this is like a really quick side note. This is so often what we do when we found ourselves caught in sin, is we try to cover it up. And so what they do is they kill a goat and they spill its blood all over his coat of many colors that his dad got him. And they bring it to his dad, and his dad is just distraught, brokenhearted, because it's his son that he loved. So he also tears his clothes. That's something that they did back then to show that they're mourning. You guys can read this chapter on your own. But then I want to resume in verse 36. It says this: meanwhile, so this is after all of this happens, they bring Joseph over there. They bring him to be sold, and they go to his dad, and they tell him that he's dead pretty much, and he's mourning. And so it says, meanwhile, the Midianites had sold him to Egypt, to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and a captain of the guard. That's just kind of an intro into what's going to be happening next. But God will ultimately redeem the people in this story. I think that's a note that we want to just pay attention to. Joseph and his brothers are in the heritage of Jesus. They are the people group that they will turn into a nation. You remember his dad's name was Jacob, but also Israel. That's because God renamed Jacob to be Israel, because he said, hey, you are my son whom I love, and I'm going to make you a great nation. And so God uses this family that's super dysfunctional. In the future, you're going to see how he uses this family to do so much good. Just like in Genesis 50 that Raya was talking about earlier, where the enemy means it for evil, God will use it for good. And so what you're going to see here is that he's going to redeem this family even though they do terrible, terrible things. And that truth is what he does today with terrible people like you and I. Like, we are not worthy to be used by God. I am not worthy to be used by God. But he decided to use me, and he's deciding to use you today. So, your life is valuable because Christ loved you first. To know more, you must seek him. And I just put this verse in here because it's like my favorite verse, and it's showing us how we can know more about God and know where our value comes from. It's Colossians 3:10, and it says, and have put off the new self, or put on the new self, which is being renewed in the knowledge after the image of its creator. This is a small verse that sums up a very big meaning, saying that in order to know God, we should renew ourselves in the knowledge after the image of our Creator. In order to know God, in order to know your purpose in life, to know his voice and to know how to trust him, you must renew yourself on the knowledge of the image of our Creator. And it's amazing. It's amazing that he's given us a book that has all of the truth of God inside of it that we can read and we can meditate on and we can learn more and we can learn to discern what our purpose in life is. And so if you are in this room and you feel like, oh man, when he was talking about that person who walks into a room and is just like overcome with the thoughts of what everybody else is thinking, or that sounds like me. Or if when he was talking about the person who just like loves to watch other people fail, that sounds like me, and I've never told anybody about that. If you're in this room and you feel like you don't know what your purpose in life is, like my invitation to you and my urgency to you is to be open about these things to your leaders, because our leaders, guys, the reason we prayed over Ryan earlier is because they are selected by God to be here. The same way that you were selected to be sitting here and to be hearing this right now. You are selected by God with a purpose that is specific only to you. All of us have the purpose to know God and to show his love to other people, but you have a specific purpose on your life. And if you feel like you're any of those people that I was talking about earlier, I just want to encourage you. I want to urge you to be open in these conversations, because these are people who love you, who will surround you. Can we pray together? All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, God, you are good. You are strong. You are great, Jesus. And to be known as a child of God is an insane blessing. It's an insane thing that it's just like, as a Christian, we've been accepted into the family of God, and you are on our side. And Jesus, as we're going to see in this story in just a moment, as in the next few weeks, Jesus, we're going to see how you use all terrible circumstances in our life to bring you glory and for us to experience you. And so, Jesus, I pray for the students in this room right now, Lord, for everybody in this room. Jesus, we have been given a purpose by God. And Lord, so often we live outside of it. So often we seek other things. So often we put our value in other things, like even our parents, what our parents say about us, our school, our grades, our performance at the gym, whatever it is, our Instagram likes, whatever it is. They all come second to you, Lord. They all come second to God, and not a close second at all. And so, Jesus, I pray that we would know that and we would live in it. God, I pray that you would show us. I genuinely pray, because God, I know that you are able. I pray that you would show us what our purpose is, at least the next step of it. And I pray this in the name of Jesus Christ. And we all say, amen.